Imagine waking before dawn, your name whispered in fear, and the knowledge that the Inquisition has finally turned its gaze toward you. The world you inhabit is a Europe fractured by theological disputes, shifting boundaries, and the fear of ideas deemed dangerous to the unity of the Church. From the late 12th century onward, the Inquisition sought to defend orthodoxy, using networks of informants, clerical courts, and the authority of princes. To be labeled a heretic was not merely to disagree with doctrine, it was to threaten the cosmic order as understood by both rulers and believers. In such an age, escape was possible but perilous. Suspicion rarely erupted suddenly. It began as a murmur. Someone questioned why you read a forbidden commentary on Scripture or why you kept the company of wandering preachers who challenged accepted teachings. In inquisitorial procedure, even rumor could spark an inquiry. Clerics gathered testimonies, often given anonymously, and compiled detailed notes. Once your name appeared in these documents, the gears of the tribunal began to turn. To escape at this moment required awareness. You needed to sense the shift in how neighbors greeted you, or notice that two friars began appearing near your dwelling more often than before. Sensory details mattered. Doors closing when you approached, sudden silences at communal gatherings, the lingering gaze of a local priest. Historical chronicles from the early 13th century record many such beginnings. For instance, a man in the region of Languedoc who realized too late that familiar faces had already spoken against him. This is the moment when you decide to flee. By now, any delay could allow the tribunal to summon you formally, binding you through obedience to appear. You choose to leave before dawn. The medieval night is thick and cold. The smell of damp timber mixes with the earthy scent of the unpaved road. You carry little: a woolen cloak, a pouch of coins, perhaps a scrap of parchment with the names of distant sympathizers. Travelers were watched closely. Inquisitorial agents often coordinated with local lords, and villages along major routes were accustomed to reporting wanderers. Your best chance is to follow shepherd's paths, narrow trails rarely used by the authorities. Memories of earlier fugitives echo in your thoughts. Chroniclers, writing in the middle of the 14th century, mention a group who escaped by following riverbeds under cover of reeds, moving soundlessly as patrols passed above them. You feel each heartbeat as you begin your flight into uncertainty. Once the Inquisition notes your absence, the stakes rise sharply. Failing to appear when summoned is itself taken as proof of guilt. Letters are dispatched to nearby towns, describing you in precise detail, your height, your gait, your manner of speech. In some regions, secular authorities assist by providing mounted guards. Their hooves echo across the countryside, and the sound travels far in the stillness of morning. You hide in abandoned mills or among thickets of bramble, listening for the clatter of armor or the bark of dogs. Fear sharpens every sense. The creak of wood becomes a threat, the rustle of wind a possible footstep. Historical accounts from northern Italy describe fugitives who eluded capture for weeks, only to be discovered when they lit a small fire to warm themselves. Smoke was the enemy. Silence was survival. Your own pursuers are closer now, but you keep moving. To endure the chase, you require allies. Across medieval Europe, networks of believers existed who disagreed with official doctrine, offering temporary shelter to those fleeing inquisitorial courts. You arrive at a remote farmhouse whose occupants share your unorthodox views. The scent of bread and boiling herbs fills the air as they usher you inside, speaking in hushed tones. They warn you that informants sometimes posed as fugitives, so even those willing to help risked severe punishment. In the early 15th century, records from the lands of the Crown of Aragon show entire families fined or imprisoned for aiding an accused heretic. You sleep on straw beneath the roof beams, hearing the distant rain tapping against the tiles. Your hosts promise to guide you toward a border, but they also confess that patrols have increased along the main roads. For a moment, safety feels close, yet fragile as thin glass. The journey toward another jurisdiction, perhaps a neighboring kingdom, less eager to assist, the tribunal requires careful timing. You travel at twilight, when the last light softens the shapes of hills and distant figures appear as mere shadows. Borderlands are dangerous places. Officials may be bribed, or they may betray you for favor. The cold wind carries the scent of pine and distant smoke from guard posts. You recall tales from the late 13th century describing heretics who disguised themselves as traders, carrying bundles of cloth or pottery to justify their movement. Others pretended to be pilgrims seeking holy sites, blending into the constant flow of penitents. Your disguise is simple: a traveler's cloak, worn boots, and a staff. As you approach a river that marks the boundary, a patrol emerges from the tree line. Their lanterns swing, casting orange halos on the water. Your heart pounds, but you force yourself to appear calm. The patrol hails you. Their voices are stern, but not immediately hostile. They ask where you have come from, where you are going, and whether you carry goods subject to tax. You answer with measured calm, repeating the story you rehearsed during the long hours of walking. The river murmurs beneath the wooden planks of the crossing, and the lanterns throw wavering bands of light upon the boards. One guard studies your face for a long moment. You feel his gaze weigh your every breath. Inquisitorial descriptions often circulated by word of mouth. Perhaps he has heard one that resembles you. He finally waves you on, distracted by another group approaching from the south. The air feels lighter as you cross, but even beyond the border, danger follows like a shadow. Though you have crossed into another jurisdiction, secrecy remains essential. You find lodging in a small settlement nestled between low hills and scattered vineyards. The house where you stay smells of crushed grapes and damp earth. Its owner, an aging artisan, once heard reformist preachers and still sympathizes with their ideas. He allows you to sleep in his loft, but urges absolute silence about your past. Living hidden wears on the mind. The days are long and filled with waiting. You watch travelers from a narrow loft window, merchants, friars, soldiers, and peasants, each carrying news that could spell safety or peril. Historical records from the early 14th century describe fugitives who lived for years in such quiet obscurity, never venturing far, afraid that a single misstep would reveal them. Your own solitude becomes its own form of trial. As weeks pass, you learn that not all within this new land welcome those fleeing inquisitorial authority. Some see aiding a fugitive as a quick path to favor with powerful clerics. A stranger begins lingering near the artisan's home. At first, it seems coincidence. Then you see him again at the market and later near the chapel gate. His eyes follow you with a searching intensity. Betrayal often came from necessity. Chronicles from the lands of Burgundy tell of a farmer who betrayed a fugitive merely to avoid having his own tithes examined. Another sought absolution through the act. One evening, you hear hushed voices outside the window. The artisan enters your loft, pale with fear. Someone, he says, has been asking questions about a traveler who arrived without papers. You understand now. The net is tightening again. You leave before dawn once more. The artisan gives you a satchel of bread and dried fruit and whispers a blessing. The morning is cold, with a pale mist drifting above the fields. Each step away from the settlement carries both relief and sorrow. You know that remaining would endanger your host, and yet leaving thrusts you again into a world where every road might hold a watchful eye. You keep to forest paths, moving beneath branches heavy with dew. Birds call intermittently, breaking the silence with sharp, echoing cries. Many fugitives of the 15th century took similar routes, traveling through wooded hills to reach free cities, places where inquisitorial reach was weaker, and local councils prized autonomy. Your new goal is such a city, known for shielding dissidents behind its high stone walls. When its walls finally rise before you, the free city feels almost unreal. Massive stone ramparts cast long shadows across the outer fields. Merchants gather at the gates, speaking in multiple dialects, trading goods from distant coasts. Here, jurisdiction is contested. The Inquisition holds influence, but the city's council protects its trading privileges fiercely and resents foreign interference. At the gate, the guards ask your name and trade. You give a false one, claiming to be a scholar seeking work as a scribe. Your hands, accustomed to holding manuscripts, prove the claim believable enough. Inside, the streets smell of baked bread and hot iron. Workshops ring with the sound of hammers, and narrow alleys twist between tall buildings of timber and stone. For the first time in many months, you feel the possibility of rebuilding a life. But safety in a free city is never absolute. The Inquisition sends envoys to negotiate cooperation and requests the arrest of suspects believed to have fled into its markets and taverns. One morning, as you pass a public square, you see a friar reading an edict aloud. It announces the presence of heretical fugitives and calls upon all faithful citizens to remain vigilant. Though your name is not spoken, the description is unsettlingly close. A scholar of moderate height, with a quiet manner and a fondness for written texts. You retreat quickly into a side alley, listening as the friar's voice fades into echo. Historical documents from the late 13th and early 14th centuries describe such edicts as tools of psychological pressure. They fueled fear, encouraged denunciations, and reminded the populace that the tribunal's memory was long. Once again, you sense invisible eyes upon you. In the months that follow, you build a humble life copying manuscripts for a minor noble household. Yet the city remains tense, its factions debating how far to cooperate with inquisitorial demands. You now face a choice that has haunted many fugitives throughout history. You can disappear completely, living in silence and fear for the rest of your days. Or you can use your knowledge to quietly support others who question accepted doctrine, joining a hidden community of readers, thinkers, and reformers. Records from the early 15th century describe these secret gatherings. Cramped rooms lit by oil lamps, soft murmurs of shared ideas, trembling hands passing forbidden texts. You weigh the risks carefully. The Inquisition's reach is vast, but silence, too, can imprison the soul. Tonight, you will decide. Your journey reveals more than the dangers faced by a single fugitive. It exposes the deeper tension between authority and conscience, between institutions that claim absolute truth and individuals who dare to question. History shows that ideas cannot be entirely extinguished by force. They move with travelers, hide in whispered conversations, and endure in fragile manuscripts carried across borders. As the city's bells toll in the distance and night settles over its rooftops, your footsteps continue, one person among many who walk the uncertain line between survival and conviction. The darkness of this age fades slowly, leaving behind a reminder that human belief, once kindled, travels farther than any pursuer.